Welcome to the QuickPro camera guide for the Nikon D5500. This guide is meant to be a study tool to be used in connection with and not a replacement of your camera's owner's manual. The D5500 is a great camera that will capture amazing images as well as HD video. Let's get started. Your D5500 has many sophisticated buttons and dials, and to take the best pictures with your camera, you want to be familiar with the functions of each of them. Let's begin by taking a closer look at many of the camera's features. First, there is the power switch and shutter release button. To take a picture, simply press and hold the shutter button halfway down for a moment. Allow the camera to focus and press it the rest of the way down to take the picture. This is the exposure compensation aperture button and the movie record button. This is the mode dial, which will allow you to select the camera's shooting mode. The D5500 offers a variety of shooting modes, including auto, flash off, effects, manual exposure, aperture priority, shutter priority, program auto, and scene. We'll discuss each of these shooting modes in greater detail later in this guide. This is the live view switch, which will allow you to enter or exit the camera's live view shooting mode. Here is the accessory shoot, which will allow you to use an optional flash unit with your camera. This is the stereo microphone that records sound in the camera's movie mode. Take care not to cover the microphone when movie recording. This is the built-in flash unit, which can provide extra light in poor lighting conditions. This is the speaker, which plays back sound in movie playback. On this side of the camera, we'll find the memory card slot cover. The D5500 can use SD, SDHC, and SDXC memory cards. When you're inserting a memory card, you'll want to make sure that the manufacturer's logo is facing the back of the camera. Simply insert the card until it clicks into place and close the card slot cover. Before you start taking pictures with a new memory card, it's a good idea to format it. Also keep in mind that your camera will operate faster if you periodically format your memory card, rather than simply deleting images from it to free up space for more picture taking. Make sure that you don't format your card unless you've already copied images that you want to save to your computer. Formatting your card will erase all the images. To format the memory card, press the menu button and use the camera's multi-selector to navigate to the setup menu indicated by the wrench icon. Use the multi-selector to select the Format Memory Card option and press OK. Select Yes and press OK. Also on this side of the camera, there is the HDMI connector cover, which will allow you to connect the camera to an HD television. This is the AF Assist Illuminator. In low-light conditions, this will illuminate the scene to help the camera find focus. It also serves as the self-timer and red-eye reduction lamp. This is an infrared receiver, which allows the camera to communicate with an optional remote control. Now let's take a look at the other side of the camera. Here is the connector cover, which will allow you to connect the camera to other devices. This is the accessory connector, which will allow you to connect the camera to optional accessories, including a GPS unit. This is the microphone connector, which will allow you to connect an external microphone for movie recording. Here is the USB and AV connector, which will allow you to connect the camera to a computer-compatible printer or TV. Also on this side of the camera, there is the flash button. Pressing this button will make the built-in flash pop up. This button can also be used in conjunction with the command dial to select the flash mode. This is the function button. You can use the custom setting menu to customize this button to provide quick access to many of the camera's settings. This is the lens release button. When you want to remove a lens, press the lens release button while holding the camera with the same hand, and then with the other hand, rotate the lens until it uncouples. Avoid changing lenses in windy or dusty conditions. This will help the image sensor stay clean and free of dust. To attach a lens, make sure that the camera is switched to off. Hold the camera with one hand and the lens with the other like this. Align the lens's index with the camera's index, then gently rotate the lens until it clicks into place. Take great care not to scratch the lens by allowing it to make contact with anything. This is the release mode button. To set a release mode, press the release mode button and use the multi-selector and OK button to make your selection. You can choose from single frame, continuous low speed, continuous high speed, quiet, self-timer, delayed remote, and quick response remote. Now let's take a look at the back of the camera. The most prominent feature is the fully articulated 3-inch touchscreen LCD monitor. When rotating or tilting the LCD monitor, note that it will pivot, tilt, and rotate in specific directions, and forcing the monitor in a direction other than intended may cause damage. This sophisticated monitor can be controlled using the camera's buttons and dials, and many of the functions can also be controlled using the touchscreen. In this guide, we'll discuss using the controls primarily with the buttons and dials, but note that you can also use the touchscreen for many functions. This screen serves several purposes. First, it displays images that have been taken. Using the camera's playback button and multi-selector, you can scroll through the images on the memory card. You can also simply swipe the touchscreen to scroll through images. Second, in the camera shooting modes, the LCD monitor provides fast and easy access to the camera's shooting settings in the information display. Third, when the menu button is pressed, the LCD monitor displays the camera's menu system, where you can change many important settings in the camera. And fourth, when the live view switch is rotated, the LCD monitor provides a real-time view of the scene. Directly above the LCD monitor is the viewfinder, where you can see camera settings when you're taking pictures. Before you start taking pictures, you'll want to focus the viewfinder. To do this, use the diopter adjustment control located to the right of the eye cup. Rotate the control until the automatic focus points in the viewfinder are in sharp focus. At the bottom of the viewfinder display, you can see the focus indicator, the shutter speed, aperture, exposure meter in the manual mode, the number of shots remaining, and when the flash is being used, the flash ready indicator. Over the scene, you'll see the camera's focus points. When the shutter button is pressed halfway to focus, the area where the focus points blink in red will be in focus. This is another infrared receiver, which, like the one on the camera's grip, allows the camera to communicate with an optional remote control. This is the menu button, which provides access to the camera's sophisticated menu system. This is the info button. Pressing this button will allow you to turn the LCD monitor on or off. This is the Auto Exposure Autofocus Lock Protect button. Pressing and holding this button will lock the focus while you recompose the image. And when you're using the center weighted or spot metering modes, pressing and holding this button will also lock the exposure. The final purpose of this button is to protect images in playback mode from accidental deletion. We'll talk more about the protect function later in this guide. Here is the command dial. Rotating this dial allows you to change exposure settings and many other camera settings. This is the playback button. Pressing this button will allow you to view your images on the LCD monitor. This is the I button, which will allow you to quickly access and adjust settings on the camera's information display. On the information display, you'll see the shooting mode, the shutter speed display, the aperture display, and the ISO display. This is the touch function indicator, the vignette control indicator, and the battery indicator. Tapping these arrow icons will allow you to make adjustments to the shutter speed and aperture settings with the touch screen. This is the autofocus area indicator, the release mode, and the number of shots remaining. Below the graphic display, you can see all of the settings that you can quickly access and adjust. To make adjustments to these settings, you can press the I button or you can tap the I icon at the bottom of the screen. First, there is the image quality setting, the image size, the bracketing setting, the HDR setting, the active delighting setting, the white balance setting, the ISO sensitivity, the picture control, the focus mode, the autofocus area mode, the metering mode, the flash mode, the flash compensation, and the exposure compensation. This is the help icon. You can either tap the icon or you can press the Help Playback Zoom Out button to view information about the currently selected option. As we've discussed, this is the multi-selector. It's used for navigating the menu system, scrolling through images in playback, and accessing information in the information display. In the center of the multi-selector is the OK button. Press this button to confirm your selection in the information display and menu systems. These are the Playback Zoom In and Playback Zoom Out buttons. The Playback Zoom Out button also functions as the Help button. This is the Delete button, which simply allows you to delete photos from the memory card. Your D5500 has a variety of image quality and size settings that will allow you to capture images with resolution, file format, and compression that you need for your scenario. Let's first take a moment to talk about the camera's image quality and image size options. Your Nikon D5500 can record image files in two different image quality settings or file types, RAW and JPEG. First, there is the RAW or NEF setting. RAW files are not actually image files. They're actually the raw data saved to the memory card directly from the image sensor. This means that RAW files must be processed on the computer before they're printed. Next, RAW file sizes are considerably larger than JPEG files. RAW files have a much broader range of tones, shadow and highlight areas have more detail than other image files, and you can extensively edit RAW files without losing image data. The other image quality setting on the D5500 is JPEG. JPEG files are a standard compressed file format that is supported by any image software. Because JPEG files are compressed, the file sizes are very small compared to RAW files, but they also have a much narrower range of tones and will lose some image data each time they're edited and resaved. To select the image quality, press the I button and use the multi-selector to highlight the image quality option. Press OK to view the options. The bottom three settings are the JPEG options, including Fine, Normal, and Basic. The JPEG quality options determine how much compression is used when the JPEG file is saved to the memory card. Images with a basic setting will have the most compression, images with a normal setting will have moderate compression, and images with a fine setting will have the least compression. If you want to keep the JPEG images at the highest quality setting, select JPEG Fine. Above the JPEG settings, you'll see the RAW options. You can choose to have the camera record only one RAW file each time a picture is taken, or you can choose to have the camera record one RAW file and one JPEG file each time a picture is taken. With the RAW plus JPEG options, you can choose the level of JPEG compression. Now let's talk about selecting the image size. Again, press the I button and use the multi-selector and OK button to select image size. This is where you can choose how many megapixels you would like the camera to use when recording images. The first image size option is large. Choosing this setting will use all 24 megapixels. The medium option uses about 13 megapixels and the small option uses about 6 megapixels. You might choose the medium or small options if you're only using the photos for emailing or posting online. But most of the time you'll probably want to use the large option. One of the most important concepts in photography is exposure, or the amount of light that falls on the camera's image sensor. A properly exposed photo will have good detail in the shadow, midtone, and highlight areas. Photos that are too bright are overexposed, and photos that are too dark are underexposed. The camera uses metering modes to determine proper exposure settings. There are 3 different metering modes on the D5500. To select a metering mode, tap the I icon or press the I button. Use the multi-selector or touch screen to choose the metering option. and press OK to access the metering modes. The first metering mode is called matrix metering. This is a great general use metering mode that can be used in most shooting scenarios. When this mode is selected, the camera will divide the scene into zones. Then the camera measures the shadows and highlights in each zone and averages all the zones. Then the camera uses that average to set the exposure automatically to suit the scene. This is a good mode to use for many situations, but sometimes when the scene is very bright or very dark, you may want to use a different metering mode. The next mode is center-weighted metering. Center-weighted metering functions much like matrix metering, with zones being evaluated and averaged. But with center-weighted metering, the zones that are in the center area of the frame are given the greatest weight. The zones that are outside of the center area of the frame are taken into account as well, but these zones are given much less priority when determining the exposure. Center-weighted metering is a classic mode used for portraits. The last metering mode is spot metering. Spot metering functions in much the same way as center-weighted metering, but spot metering uses only 2.5% of the frame to determine proper exposure. When spot metering is used on the D5500, the selected focus point is used to determine exposure. This feature on the D5500 makes it easier to meter off-center subjects. Spot metering is a great mode to use when there is a lot of contrast between the background and the subject, when the background is either very bright or very dark. Now that you know a little about how your camera sees and measures light to create properly exposed photos, let's talk a little about the shooting modes on the D5500. Your camera shooting modes allow you to take creative control over your camera's settings like aperture, shutter speed, ISO, white balance, flash, as well as a variety of other settings. To select a shooting mode, simply rotate the mode dial. With the auto, flash off, and scene modes, the camera chooses everything for you. All you need to do is point and shoot. To take a picture in auto mode, simply press the shutter button halfway to allow the camera to focus. The focus point or points that achieve focus will blink in red in the viewfinder and green in live view. If needed, the flash will pop up automatically. Then simply press the shutter button the rest of the way to take the picture. The next mode is flash off. This mode functions in the same way as the auto mode, except that the flash is disabled. Use this mode in places where flash photography is prohibited or inappropriate. This mode is also a good mode to use for candlelight scenes or if you want to create streaks of light for creative effect. The next setting on the mode dial is scene. The D5500 has many different scene modes that will help you capture great images in almost any scenario. To access the scene modes, simply rotate the mode dial to scene. To select the scene mode, rotate the command dial. There is a scene mode for portrait, landscape, child, sports, close-up, night portrait, night landscape, party indoor, beach, snow, sunset, dusk, dawn, pet portrait, candlelight, blossom, autumn colors, and food. The D5500 also features a unique effects mode, where you can take photos with a variety of special effects. To access the effects mode, rotate the mode dial to effects. The 7 different options are shown on the information display and can be selected simply by rotating the command dial. Let's briefly discuss each of these modes. First, there is the night vision effects mode. This mode is useful when you want to take photos in the dark with very high ISOs. Select this mode by rotating the command dial. Images taken in this mode are black and white and have digital noise. You may want to use a tripod to reduce image blur. The next effects mode is super vivid. In this mode, images will be very saturated and have high contrast. Next, there is pop, which will boost the color saturation to make the image more vibrant. Photo illustration is next. With this mode, the camera will capture images with a poster-like effect. Edges will have darkened outlines and the colors will be simplified. The next mode is the toy camera mode. With this mode, you can take images that have shaded corners in pronounced colors. The next effects mode is the miniature effect. Using this mode, you can make distant subjects appear very small. Be sure to place the focus point on the area of the frame that you would like emphasized. Next, there is the selective color mode. With this mode, you can select only one color to be visible in the image, and the other colors to be black and white. With this mode, you'll need to choose the color that you want to have visible in the image using the camera's live view. Enter live view by rotating the live view switch. Press the OK button to display the selective color options. Place the colored object within the small white frame and press the up arrow on the multi-selector to choose that color. Now, using the up and down arrows on the multi-selector, you can adjust the range of hues that you'd like the camera to include. You can choose from levels 1 through 7. If you choose 1, there will be a narrower range of colors shown in the final image. If you choose 7, there will be a broader range of colors. Rotate the command dial to select up to 2 additional colors in the same way. When you're finished making adjustments, press OK. Now take the picture. Only the color that you selected will be shown in the image, and everything else will be black and white. The next effects mode is silhouette. This is a great mode to use outdoors at sunset when you'd like to capture a silhouette of your subject. The next effects mode is high key. You can use this mode when you're taking pictures of a scene that is very bright. The high key mode makes images appear to be filled with light. The last effects mode is low key. With this mode, the camera will capture dark images and retain prominent highlights. Now let's take a look at the more advanced shooting modes on the D5500. The first mode is called Program Auto, and it's represented with a P on the control panel and mode dial. In this mode, the camera automatically adjusts shutter speed and aperture for optimal exposure, but you can change the aperture and shutter speed combinations to suit your needs. To operate in this mode, rotate the mode dial to P. To monitor the aperture and exposure settings, look through the viewfinder, hold the shutter button halfway down to focus, then press the shutter button all the way down to take the picture. You may find that the shutter speed is too slow for what you're photographing, or that the aperture does not give you the depth of field that you're looking for. If you'd like to change the camera's shutter speed and aperture combination, simply rotate the command dial. Rotate the command dial to the right for large apertures and fast shutter speeds, and rotate the command dial to the left for small apertures and slow shutter speeds. The next shooting mode is the S, or shutter priority mode. The shutter priority mode is useful for times when you want to control motion in a scene, whether it's freezing action or blurring the motion of a subject. In this mode, you'll set the shutter speed, and the camera will automatically select an appropriate aperture value for proper exposure. To use the camera in shutter priority mode, set the mode dial to S. To set the shutter speed, you can rotate the command dial, or you can use the touch screen. The Nikon D5500 has shutter speeds that range from very slow, 30 full seconds, to very fast, 1/4000th of a second. You can view the shutter speed and aperture values through the camera's viewfinder or on the information display. The next shooting mode is A, or aperture priority mode. The aperture priority mode is useful for times when you want to control the depth of field in an image. Depth of field is the term used to describe the distance between the nearest and farthest objects in a scene that appear acceptably sharp in an image. When only a small area or subject in an image is in focus, it's said to have a shallow depth of field. This effect is achieved by using a smaller f-stop number. When everything in both the foreground and the background is in focus, the image is said to have a long depth of field. For a long depth of field, choose a larger f-stop number. When you're shooting in aperture priority mode, you'll set the aperture, and the camera will automatically select the correct shutter speed for proper exposure. To use this mode, set the mode dial to A, rotate the command dial, or use the touchscreen to select an aperture value as you watch the display through the viewfinder or on the information display. Once you've made your selection, press the shutter button halfway to focus and the rest of the way to take the picture. The last shooting mode is manual, or M mode. This mode gives you complete control of the camera. In manual mode, you will set both the shutter speed and aperture to create the exposure. To operate the camera in manual mode, rotate the mode dial to M. To set the shutter speed, rotate the command dial. To set the aperture, press and hold the aperture button while rotating the command dial. Press the shutter button halfway so that as you're making adjustments to the aperture and shutter speed, you can watch the exposure scale either on the LCD monitor or through the viewfinder. When the exposure level indicator is near the center of the scale, the image will be properly exposed. You can choose just the right aperture and shutter speed combination for your scene, whether you want to freeze action or create a very shallow depth of field. Make the necessary adjustments to the aperture and shutter speed so that the exposure level indicator is near the center of the scale. Then press the shutter button halfway down to focus and the rest of the way to take the picture. In addition to the aperture and shutter speed, the camera's ISO setting will have a significant impact on whether your images are properly exposed. The ISO setting affects the image sensor's sensitivity to light. The higher the number, the less light that is required to properly expose the image sensor. You can either have the camera automatically choose the sensitivity, or you can set it manually. To set the ISO on the D5500, press the I button or tap the I icon and select ISO. Here you can choose from ISO settings ranging from 100 to 25,600. The D5500 also has an auto ISO feature that will automatically select an appropriate ISO setting. The great thing about the auto ISO on this camera is that it works in conjunction with a selected minimum shutter speed that you can set according to your scenario. The auto ISO options are accessed in the camera's shooting menu under ISO sensitivity settings. Here you can simply select the ISO setting and you can set the controls for the auto ISO options. First, you can set the auto ISO sensitivity control to on or off. Next, you can select the maximum ISO sensitivity. If you'd like to make sure that the camera does not use any ISO setting higher than ISO 1600, for example, simply select 1600. Now you can set the minimum shutter speed. You can select auto, or you can choose any other shutter speed that you'd like. This setting will set the slowest shutter speed that the camera will use. If the shutter speed drops to slower than what you have selected here, the camera will increase the ISO to keep the shutter speed at the minimum that you have selected. It's a good idea to set the ISO speed to suit the ambient light setting that you're shooting in. When you increase the ISO speed to a higher number for low light, a faster shutter speed can be used to avoid blurry images. The image sensor on your camera is very powerful. It will allow you to use very high ISO settings and still have great images. Keep in mind, however, that some very high ISO settings will introduce digital noise or grain into your images. Here's a guide that will help you have a basic idea of what ISO settings to use in various situations. When you're outdoors in full sun, use ISO 100 to 200. In the shade, on an overcast day, or indoors with lots of window light, use ISO 400. ISOs 800 and higher should be used indoors for action shots or in other low light conditions. Now that we've discussed shooting modes and ISO settings, let's take a minute to talk about the camera's release modes. The release modes determine how many times the shutter releases when you press the shutter button. To set the release mode, press the release mode button and use the touch screen or multi-selector to choose the release mode. The D5500 has single frame, continuous low speed, continuous high speed, quiet, self-timer, delayed response remote, and quick response remote. In single frame release mode, one picture will be taken when you press the shutter button completely. This is a good release mode for stationary subjects. The continuous low speed release mode will record up to 3 frames per second while the shutter button is pressed down completely. The continuous high speed release mode will record up to 5 frames per second while the shutter button is pressed down completely. In the quiet release mode, one picture will be taken each time the shutter button is pressed down completely. This mode is similar to the single frame release mode, except that the sound is kept to a minimum with this mode. The self-timer mode takes the picture 10 seconds after the shutter button is pressed completely. Use this mode for self-portraits or with a tripod to reduce camera shake at very slow shutter speeds. You can change the self-timer delay in the camera's custom settings menu. The D5500's remote release modes will allow you to use an optional remote with the camera. With the delayed response mode, the camera will take the picture 2 seconds after the shutter button on the remote is pressed. With quick response remote, the camera will take the picture immediately when the shutter button on the remote is pressed. The Nikon D5500 has two great features that you can use to capture great photos and amazing HD video. Let's discuss the camera's live view and movie modes. To shoot in live view or prepare for movie recording, rotate the live view switch. Please note that it's important to avoid directing the camera's lens toward the sun in live view and movie modes, as this can seriously damage the camera's internal components. Before you start taking pictures, you'll need to choose the camera's focus mode as well as the AF area mode. To choose the focus mode, tap the eye icon or press the I button and select the focus mode option in the information display. In live view, you can choose from AFS or single servo AF, AFF or full-time servo AF, and manual focus. The AFS or single servo AF focus mode is best suited for stationary subjects. The focus will be locked using the selected focus point when the shutter button is pressed halfway. Use this mode when you're photographing objects or stationary people. The other autofocus mode that is available in live view and movie mode is AFF or full-time servo. This is a great mode to use for moving subjects. Using the selected focus point, the camera will focus continually even without the shutter button being pressed. Focus will be locked when the shutter button is pressed halfway down. After you've selected the autofocus mode, you'll need to choose the autofocus area mode. To do this, tap the eye icon or press the I button and select the AF area mode option in the information display. In live view and movie modes, there are 4 different AF area modes: face priority, normal area, wide area, and subject tracking. The AF area modes determine how the camera chooses the focus point or area to use when autofocusing. For the wide, normal, and subject tracking AF area modes, use the multi-selector to move the focus point to the desired area of the frame. You can press the OK button to quickly place the focus point in the center of the frame. If you select face priority, the camera will automatically find and focus on faces in the frame. Wide area is best suited for photographing landscapes and other non-portrait subjects. Use normal area when you want to pinpoint focus on a specific part of the frame. Using a tripod will help you make sure that focus stays exactly where you want it. This is a great mode to use when you're photographing small subjects. The last AF area mode is subject tracking. This mode is great for moving subjects. You'll need to position the focus point and press the OK button. This will tell the camera to track the subject in the focus point as it moves across the frame. To end subject tracking, press the OK button again. In all of the AF modes and AF area modes, the focus point will blink in red if the camera cannot focus. In the default live view display, several important shooting settings are shown on the screen. Here you'll find the battery indicator, metering mode, the shutter speed, the aperture, and the ISO. This is the number of shots remaining. At the top of the screen, you'll see the shooting mode, flash icon, release mode, focus mode, the focus area mode, the active delighting setting, the picture control, the white balance setting, and the image size and image quality settings. On the left side of the screen, you'll see the touch shutter icon. When enabled, the touch shutter will allow you to tap the subject on the LCD monitor and the camera will automatically focus and take the picture without pressing the shutter button. And as discussed, this is the eye icon, which will allow you to access many camera settings. To show the camera's movie recording icons, press the info button. In addition to many of the icons from the previous display, this display shows the movie recording quality and the recording time remaining. This icon shows the microphone setting and audio levels. To hide all of these icons, press the info button. To bring up a framing guide, press the info button again. Press the info button again to show the basic display. In addition to live view, your D5500 is also capable of shooting high-quality HD video. When shooting movies, use a Speed Class 6 SD card or higher. If a slower memory card is used, the movie may not be properly recorded. While shooting movies or in live view, be sure that you do not point the lens directly into the sun, as it may damage the camera's components. Just like capturing still photos, you can set the camera to record video at different resolutions or frame sizes. The D5500 has 3 resolution settings: 1920 by 1080, 1280 by 720, and 640 by 424. Depending on the movie frame size you choose, there are also several different frame rate options. Choosing 24 frames per second will closely imitate the look that you would get if you were using a film video camera. 30 frames per second is more like what you would see on television. 60 frames per second option is good for recording fast action video. The purpose or use of the finished video will help you decide which frame size and quality setting to use. Keep in mind that the higher the resolution, the larger the file sizes will be. The movie recording options, including frame size and quality, are available in the camera's shooting menu under Movie Settings. The top option is Frame Size, Frame Rate, where we'll be able to select the frame size and frame rate. Choosing one of the top 3 options, 1920 by 1080, will allow you to capture full HD video. Use this when you want the highest resolution video the camera is capable of recording. This number indicates the frame rate. You can choose from 60, 30, or 24 frames per second. The next option is the 1280 by 720 setting, with a frame rate option of 60 frames per second. 1280 by 720 is a good option when you want to have high quality video, but it doesn't need to be full HD. This frame size could be used for family home movies or similar scenarios. The final movie resolution option is 640 by 424 with a 30 frames per second frame rate. Use this option when image quality is a lower priority and you need to keep file sizes very small. After you've selected the movie frame size and rate, you'll need to choose the movie quality. Choosing the high quality over the normal quality setting will not affect the resolution of your video, but it will allow you to capture smoother motion in action sequences. Recording movies with your D5500 is easy. To use the camera's movie mode, rotate the live view switch. Before recording, focus using the methods that we've discussed for live view. Press the movie recording button to start recording. To refocus during movie recording, press the shutter button halfway. Press the movie recording button again to stop recording. Your movie files will be saved as MOV files. To view a movie that you recorded, press the playback button. And if necessary, scroll to the movie that you would like to play. Press the OK button to begin the movie playback. To record sound in movie mode, the D5500 has a built-in microphone, which will record sound automatically by default. If you'd like to change the microphone sensitivity or turn off sound recording, you can do this through the camera's menu system. In the shooting menu, select Movie Settings and Microphone. Here you can choose Auto Sensitivity, Manual Sensitivity, or Microphone Off. The D5500 has a large LCD monitor where you can review images, adjust menu settings, and access the information display. There are many options available for previewing images, and many of the camera's settings can easily be accessed through the information display. Let's discuss how to use these camera features. For basic playback of your images on the camera's LCD monitor, simply press the playback button. Then you can use the multi-selector or touch screen to scroll through the images. If you have a large number of images recorded on the memory card, you may find that it's faster to find the photos that you'd like to view if you display multiple photos on the screen at once. To do this, you can pinch across the touch screen once, or you can press the zoom out button. Pressing the zoom out button once will display 4 images on the LCD monitor. Pressing the zoom out button twice will display 12 images, and pressing the zoom out button a third time will display 80 images. From here, you can use the touchscreen or multi-selector to scroll through the images and press the OK button for a full screen display of the image that you'd like to view. You can also magnify images on the LCD monitor. This is especially useful when you want to check for good focus in detail areas of the photo. Use the touchscreen or press the zoom in button once or multiple times to see the desired level of detail in the photo. Then you can use the multi-selector or touchscreen to scroll top to bottom and side to side on the photo. To return to regular image playback, press the OK button. As you're scrolling through photos on the camera's playback, you may find some images that you'd like to protect from being accidentally erased. To protect an image, simply press the AEL/AFL Protect button. A small key icon will appear on the LCD to indicate that the image is protected. Simply press the AEL/AFL Protect button again to unprotect the image. If you find a photo that didn't turn out, you can delete it from the memory card by pressing the Delete button. When the dialog appears, press the Delete button again and the image will be removed from the memory card. Note that once the image is erased, it cannot be recovered. There are several different playback screens and options on the D5500. By default, not all of the screen options are enabled. To enable the other screen options, press the menu button and navigate to the playback menu. Select Playback Display Options. Here you can use the touch screen or press the right arrow on the multi-selector to select each of the options to be enabled. When you're finished, press OK. Let's take a look at the first and default playback screen. This screen shows some important information about the image. First, there is the folder name, the file name, image quality and size settings, and the date and time that the image was recorded. At the top right corner of the screen, the frame number out of the total number of images is displayed. To view additional playback displays, press the up or down arrow button on the multi-selector. Pressing the up arrow button will display a full frame image with no additional information. Pressing the up arrow again will display the overview playback display. In addition to the information that was shown in the default or file information playback display, there is a histogram of the image. The histogram gives a basic idea of the tone distribution and exposure of an image. It's especially useful when you're outdoors in bright sunlight and the images are difficult to see on the LCD monitor. If the histogram is shifted to the left side of the graph, the image will probably be dark or underexposed. If the histogram is shifted to the right side of the graph, the image will be too bright or overexposed. In most cases, a properly exposed photo will have the data distributed over the whole graph or in the center of the graph. This screen also shows the metering mode, the shooting mode, the shutter speed, the aperture, the ISO setting, the focal length, the exposure compensation and flash compensation settings, the active delighting setting, the white balance setting, the color space, and the picture control. Pressing the up arrow again will display the first screen of the shooting data display. There are 3 screens in this display. Press the up arrow on the multi-selector to view the additional screens. The next playback display is the RGB histogram display. This screen shows a histogram for the whole image as well as a histogram for each of the red, green, and blue channels of the image. Here you can see the areas in any of the individual channels that are shifted to the left, showing the dark tones in that channel, or shifted to the right, showing the lighter tones in that color channel. If any of the channels have distribution that is shifted too far to the right, that color channel will be oversaturated and show little or no detail. The last screen available in the playback display is blinking highlights. This feature is useful for times when you may want to have the camera warn you if certain areas of your photo are overexposed. In this playback display, areas that are very overexposed and have lost detail in highlights will blink in black. In the playback mode, there are several different and creative ways that you can process your images in camera. These are the retouch menu options and are accessible in playback mode by pressing the I button. Let's discuss several of these options now. The first item in the retouch menu is NEF or RAW processing. This option will make a JPEG copy of a RAW file and save it to the memory card. Here you can adjust several items, including image quality and size, white balance, exposure compensation, picture control, high ISO noise reduction, color space, vignette control, and delighting. After you have made the desired adjustments to each of these settings, highlight EXE and press OK to save a JPEG copy of the image to the memory card. Retouched images have a retouch icon displayed at the top of the image. The next option is trim, where you can crop a photo in camera. Using the camera's zoom in and zoom out buttons, you can adjust the size of the crop, and rotating the command dial or tapping the aspect ratio icon will allow you to change the aspect ratio. You can also use the multi-selector or touch screen to move the crop to the desired area of the frame. Finally, you can press OK to apply the crop and save the image as a separate file. Another useful function in the retouch menu is the resize option, where you can create smaller copies of images. First, you'll need to choose the size of the image copy. Options ranging between 2.5 megapixels and 0.3 megapixels are available. Select the size that you want and press OK. Select Yes and press OK again to save a resized copy to your memory card. The next item in the retouch menu is delighting, which allows you to improve detail and highlight in shadow areas in an image. First, you need to select the amount of correction that you'd like to apply. On the right side of the screen, a preview image is displayed as you scroll through the options. Choosing low will improve some of the darkest shadow areas, normal will brighten more of the shadow areas, and high will brighten most of the shadow areas in the image. After you've made your selection, press OK to save the image. The camera will make a copy of the image and save it to the memory card. The camera's quick retouch option will create a copy of the selected image with greater contrast and enhanced colors. The red eye correction feature will allow you to reduce the effect of red eye in images where flash was used. The straighten function can be used for any image, but is especially useful for landscapes and photos of architecture. To use this function, press the left and right arrow buttons on the multi-selector and align the horizon or any other reference line with the displayed grid. When you've adjusted the photo to your liking, press the OK button to have the camera save a copy of the image. Depending on the lens and focal length that you use, you may find that some of your images have some distortion, a sometimes unwanted effect where the photo appears to be either bloated or pinched. The D5500 has a feature that will help you correct distortion. To use it, select Distortion Control in the Retouch menu. Choose Auto to have the camera automatically correct distortion, and you'll only need to fine-tune with the multi-selector. If you'd like to have complete control over distortion control, select Manual. Use the multi-selector or touch screen to adjust the distortion control to your liking, and press OK to have the camera save a copy of the image. Similar to distortion control, the perspective control feature will help you reduce the distortion that is often caused when photos of architecture are taken from a low viewpoint. You can use the touchscreen or the up and down, left and right arrows on the multi-selector to make adjustments to the perspective distortion. Again, simply press OK to save a copy of the adjusted image. If you don't own a fisheye lens, but you like that effect, you can recreate it with the fisheye feature in the Retouch menu. Simply select Fisheye and use the Retouch screen or left and right arrows on the multi-selector to choose how much fisheye distortion you'd like to apply, and press OK to save a copy of the image. In the Filter Effects section of the Retouch menu, you can choose to apply one of 4 filters to your image. The Skylight filter will reduce the blue in the image. The Warm filter will give the photo a warm red cast. The Cross Screen filter is a way to create starburst effects for light sources in the image. There are several options with this filter. First, you can choose the number of points you'd like each starburst to have. Then you can choose the amount or brightness of the light sources that will be affected. You'll also need to choose the angle and the length of the filter points. After your selections have been made, you can select Confirm to see the effects of your changes. From here, you can make adjustments, or you can select Save to have a copy saved to the memory card. The last filter in the filter effects is the Soft filter, which will apply a soft photo effect to the image. You can use the touchscreen or multi-selector to choose the amount of softness that is applied, and press OK to save a copy of the image. Although photo editing software makes it fast and easy to convert your color images to black and white, your camera will do a great job with this task as well with the monochrome menu option. You can choose from black and white, sepia or brown tone, and cyanotype or blue tone. With both sepia and cyanotype, you can adjust the intensity of the color with the multi-selector's up and down arrows. The color outline, photo illustration, and color sketch options will allow you to create interesting and artistic effects with your photos. The miniature effect feature will allow you to create images with similar effects to photos that are commonly created with tilt-shift lenses. Use the sides of the multi-selector to choose the size of the field of focus, and use the top and bottom of the multi-selector to choose the area of focus. You can press the Zoom Out button to change the direction of the field of focus. To see a preview of the effect, press and hold the Zoom In button. When you're satisfied with your changes, press the OK button to save the image to the memory card. The Selective Color effect allows you to create photos that have only selected colors shown in an image that is otherwise black and white. Use the multi-selector or touchscreen to place the small yellow frame over the color that you'd like to select, and press the AEL/AFL button to select it. Then you can rotate the command dial to highlight the number indicating the color range. Use the up and down buttons on the multi-selector to adjust the range of colors you'd like to be visible. If you choose 1, a narrow range will be visible. If you choose 7, a broad range will be visible. You can rotate the command dial to select up to 2 additional colors in the same way. When you've selected the colors that you'd like to be visible in the image, press OK to save a copy to the memory card. The painting effect will allow you to create an artistic HDR-like painting from your images. The side-by-side comparison option will allow you to view the original image side by side with the edited copies. If you have created multiple edited copies, you can use the multi-selector to highlight the image on the right, and then use the top and bottom of the multi-selector to scroll through the edited copies. The Nikon D5500 has a sophisticated autofocus system with a variety of autofocus modes and areas that, when used well together, will help you get great focus regardless of what type of subject you're photographing. When you're choosing an autofocus mode and autofocus area mode, the main thing that you'll need to consider is whether or not the subject is in motion. Let's first discuss 2 of the camera's autofocus modes, single servo AF and continuous servo AF. To choose a focus mode on the D5500, press the I button and use the touchscreen or multi-selector to select the focus mode option. There are 4 modes to choose from: AFA or Auto Servo AF, AFS or Single Servo AF, AFC or Continuous Servo AF, and Manual Focus. AFS or Single Servo AF is intended for use with stationary subjects. In this mode, the focus is locked when the shutter button is pressed halfway. This would be a good mode to choose if you're photographing products or doing portrait work with an older child or adult. AFC, or Continuous Servo Autofocus, is the mode that you would want to choose for photographing moving subjects. In this mode, the camera will focus continually while the shutter button is pressed halfway. This mode is great if you're photographing a sporting event, small children, or animals. The third autofocus mode is AFA, or Auto Servo AF. In this mode, the camera will switch between single and continuous servo automatically if the still subject starts moving. The final focus mode is Manual Focus, which will allow you to manually focus the image by rotating the focus ring on the lens. In addition to the autofocus modes, there are 6 autofocus area modes. Again, press the I button or tap the I icon and use the touchscreen or the multi-selector to select the AF area mode option. You can choose from single point AF, 9-point dynamic area AF, 21-point dynamic area AF, 39-point dynamic area AF, 3D tracking, and auto area AF. In the single point AF area mode, you will manually select the exact focus point that you'd like the camera to use for focus. This autofocus area mode is great for stationary subjects. Once you have selected single point AF for the autofocus area mode, it's easy to select the focus point using the camera's multi-selector. You can see the focus point that is selected in both the viewfinder and the information display on the LCD monitor. The camera will focus only on the subject that is in the selected focus point. If you want to quickly set the focus point back to the center point, simply press the OK button. The next 3 autofocus area modes are the dynamic area modes. These modes are not available in the camera's single servo AF focus mode. When you're using the dynamic area modes, the initial focus point is selected manually, just like in the single point AF mode. In dynamic modes, the areas or focus points surrounding the one that you select will be used as backup. This means that if the subject briefly leaves the selected point, the camera will focus based on information from the surrounding focus points. The dynamic area AF modes are great for subjects that generally move in one direction within the frame. You can choose from 9, 21, or 39-point dynamic area AF. You'll want to choose the number of dynamic area AF points based on the predictability of the moving subject. The more predictable the subject is, the less AF points you'll need. For subjects that are somewhat predictable in their movement, you could use the 9-point dynamic area AF. And for subjects that are not at all predictable, you'll want to use the 39-point dynamic area AF. With 3D tracking, focus can be maintained for subjects that quickly move not only side to side, but forward and backward within the frame. Examples of these types of subjects would be figure skaters or rodeo participants. 3D tracking is not available in the camera's single servo AF mode. In Auto Area AF, the camera will automatically find the subject and choose the appropriate focus point or points to use. This autofocus area mode is available for use with all of the autofocus modes. Auto Area AF is great for snapshots or situations when you don't have time to select the focus point manually. However, keep in mind that in the Auto Area AF mode, the camera may occasionally choose to focus on a subject other than what you had intended. Now that we've discussed the camera's autofocus modes and autofocus area modes separately, let's talk about how all of the autofocus functions could work together in specific shooting scenarios. Let's first use a sporting event, a football game, for an example. Subjects in this type of scenario will be in motion, so you want to select the AFC or continuous servo AF mode. If single servo AF was chosen, the camera would not continue to focus on the subject as the shutter release button was pressed halfway down. After the autofocus mode is set to AFC, either dynamic area or 3D tracking would be good choices for the autofocus area mode. The speed and predictability of the subjects would determine whether the dynamic area or 3D tracking would be the better choice. If the action is somewhat predictable and the motion is generally from side to side, using the dynamic area AF would get good results. If the action is more erratic and the motion is not only side to side but forward and backward as well, 3D tracking would be a good option. Now let's discuss a portrait scenario. Assuming that you're photographing an adult, the subject will be stationary. So a good AF mode to use would be single servo AF. For the autofocus area mode, you could choose the auto area AF or the single point AF. For subjects with less motion, the single point AF would be the best way to assure that the focus point was exactly where you intended it. But if the subject was a younger child, there may not be time to select the individual focus point, so the auto servo AF might be a better option. Sometimes a photo may have poor focus, but it's not related to the camera's focus mode or focus area mode. Camera shake happens when the camera moves while the shutter is open. This exposes the image sensor while the camera is moving and results in blurry images. Always try to steady the camera. Holding it with two hands and pressing the viewfinder gently against your face will help. You can also lean against something or use a tripod, a monopod, or even a beanbag to steady the camera. You can also reduce the effect of camera shake by selecting a fast shutter speed. This will reduce the amount of time the image sensor is exposed to shaky conditions. A helpful rule of thumb is to set your shutter speed to 1 over the focal length. Confusing? Let me explain. If the focal length on your lens is 300 millimeters, for example, you should set your shutter speed to at least 1/300th of a second. If the focal length is 30 millimeters, you might get by using a shutter speed as low as 1/30th of a second. Let's take a look at the D5500's sophisticated menu system. To access the menus, simply press the menu button. There are 5 different menus, including the playback, shooting, custom setting, setup, retouch, and recent settings. Many of these settings are discussed in greater detail in other chapters of this guide. We'll just look at an overview of the menu items in this chapter. Let's first take a look at each of the items in the playback menu. First, there is the delete option. Here, you can choose to delete a selected group of images, delete images by the date they were taken, or you can delete all of the images. The next playback menu item is the playback folder. Here you can select which folder of images you would like to be viewed in the playback mode. The next option is playback display options. This is where you can choose which playback display options you'd like to be enabled. You can choose to enable or disable the image-only option, blinking highlights, RGB histogram, the shooting data, and the overview playback displays. The next option allows you to turn the image review on or off. With auto image rotation, you can choose to have the camera record the camera orientation when taking a picture, which will allow the rotate tall feature to function properly. When enabled, rotate tall will automatically rotate images that were taken with a vertical orientation for easier viewing in the playback screen. The next option is the slideshow, where you can create a slideshow of the images for playback on the camera's LCD or television when the camera is connected with a compatible cable. The DPOF print order option will allow you to choose the order that images are printed directly from the camera when you're using a compatible printer. With the rating option, you can assign star ratings to the images on the memory card, which will make sorting easier when the files are transferred to the computer. The final option in the playback menu is Select to Send to Smart Device. With this option, you can choose the images you'd like to send to a smartphone or tablet using the camera's built-in Wi-Fi. The next menu is the shooting menu. The first option is Reset Shooting Menu, which will allow you to reset the shooting menu settings to factory default. Next, there are the storage folder and file naming options, which will allow you to select the folder where your files are saved, as well as the naming structure and file name prefix for your files. The next two options are the image quality and size, which will simply allow you to choose the resolution, file type, and compression for your images. The next option, NEF RAW recording, will allow you to choose the bit depth for NEF image files. ISO sensitivity setting is where you can select the ISO as well as the auto ISO controls. The next two options are white balance and set picture control, which will allow you to select the white balance and picture control setting, as well as customize the white balance and picture controls. Manage Picture Control will allow you to adjust, edit, and save custom picture controls. Next, there is Color Space. Your camera has two color space options. Some photographers prefer the sRGB mode, as it requires less processing later. Other photographers prefer the Adobe RGB mode, as this mode has a wider range of colors, making it a preferred option for images that will be extensively processed on the computer. The Active D-Lighting option is next. Active D-Lighting helps preserve highlight and shadow areas, making images look more natural. Overall, Active D-Lighting is a great way to improve your photos in camera. The next option is HDR, or High Dynamic Range. When enabled, the camera will capture two images at different exposures and combine them to create an image with a super realistic range of shadows and highlights. The Release Mode option will simply allow you to choose the release mode. The next two options, Long Exposure Noise Reduction and High ISO Noise Reduction, will allow you to enable noise reduction for long exposures, as well as set the level of noise reduction for images taken at high ISO settings. Vignette Control will allow you to choose how much peripheral illumination to apply to correct the vignetting effect that can be caused by certain lenses. Next, there is the Auto Distortion Control option. When enabled, this option will automatically correct the distortion that is caused by certain lenses. Next, there is the Interval Timer Shooting option. With this feature, you can set the camera to take photos at preset time intervals, which can be minutes or hours. The last menu item is the Movie Settings option, where you can choose the movie frame size, quality, and microphone settings. The next menu is the Custom Setting menu, where you can access a variety of settings for autofocus, exposure, timers, AE lock, shooting display, bracketing flash, and controls. The next menu is the Setup menu. The Format Memory Card is first, which will simply allow you to format the memory card. Next, there is Image Comment, which will allow you to input a comment up to 36 characters on an image. The next option will allow you to enter your copyright information to be saved on the metadata for your images. The next options allow you to set the time and date and language for the menu system and displays. Beep Options is next. With this menu item, you can choose to enable or disable the beep sound that is heard when the camera autofocuses and when the touch screen is used, and you can choose the pitch. With touch controls, you can enable or disable the touchscreen feature, or you can choose to have the touchscreen work only for image playback. Next, there is Monitor Brightness option, which will allow you to adjust the brightness of the monitor. Note that image exposure is not affected by the monitor brightness. Information display format will allow you to customize the appearance of the information display. You can choose from a variety of options for the basic and advanced shooting modes. The next option, Auto Information Display will allow you to choose whether the information display is activated when the shutter button is pressed halfway. The next option, Information Display Auto Off, will allow you to choose whether the information display is deactivated when you bring your eye to the viewfinder. The Clean Image Sensor option will allow you to choose what times you'd like the image sensor to be cleaned. Next, there is the Lock Mirror Up for Cleaning option. Note that the battery must be fully charged to use this option. Image Dust Off Reference Photo is next. With this option, you can take a photo to be used in conjunction with Nikon's Capture NX series software to remove dust spots automatically from photos when post-processing. The Flicker Reduction menu item is used when you're using live view or movie mode under fluorescent or mercury vapor lights. You want the setting to match the local AC power supply. The Slot Empty Release Lock setting allows you to choose what you'd like the camera to do when there's no memory card inserted and the shutter button is pressed. Next, there is Video Mode. You can choose NTSC or PAL. If you're in the United States, you'll want to select NTSC. The HDMI option is where you choose the resolution to be used when your camera is connected to an HD television. You can also set up the camera to be controlled by a compatible remote control with this option. The next option, Accessory Terminal, is used with optional Nikon accessories like the remote control and GPS units. Wi-Fi is next. With this menu item, you can enable the built-in Wi-Fi and set up the camera to communicate wirelessly with a smartphone or tablet. Conformity marking will simply display the standards that the camera complies with. The last menu item in the setup menu is Firmware Version, which will display the firmware version that is currently in use. The next menu is the Retouch menu. Each of these menu items are discussed in detail in Chapter 5. The final menu is Recent Settings. This menu displays the most recently accessed menu items. The Nikon D5500 includes several features that will allow you to fine-tune and enhance the color and tone of your images, as well as apply creative effects. In this chapter, we'll discuss white balance, picture controls, active delighting, and HDR photography. White balance is determined by the color temperature of light sources, which is measured in degrees Kelvin. The higher color temperatures, measured in the area of 5600 Kelvin to 7500 Kelvin, represent situations like a sunlit or cloudy day. These shooting situations have a greater amount of blue tones and a lesser amount of red tones. Lower color temperature situations are measured in the area of 3500 Kelvin down to 1900 Kelvin and are found in lighting situations like standard lighting from a tungsten light bulb or candlelight. These types of shooting situations are found on the lower end of the spectrum and produce greater amounts of red tones and lesser amounts of blue tones. To access the white balance settings, press the I button or tap the I icon and use the multi-selector or touch screen to select the white balance option. Here you can choose one of 8 settings. The first option is Auto White Balance. With this setting, the camera will attempt to automatically adjust the color temperature. The next white balance setting is Incandescent. This is a good setting to use when taking pictures under common light bulbs. It reduces the reddish tones in a picture. This setting is marked with a light bulb icon. The Fluorescent Light setting is great for taking pictures under fluorescent lighting. In the camera shooting menu, you can choose one of 7 different fluorescent white balance options, depending on the type of fluorescent lighting you're shooting under. The next white balance setting is Direct Sunlight. Direct Sunlight is a great setting for taking pictures in the sunlight, and this setting is marked with a sun icon. The next setting is the Flash setting. Use this setting when you're using the built-in or an external flash unit. The next setting is Cloudy. Use this setting when you're taking pictures on days that are overcast. Use the Shade setting when you're taking pictures in the shade. It reduces the bluish tones in a picture. Each of these white balance settings can be fine-tuned. To do this, enter the shooting menu and scroll to white balance. Scroll to any white balance setting other than PRE and press the right side of the multi-selector to show the color temperature grid. Use the multi-selector to place the cursor in the area of the grid that you'd like. You can increase the green, amber, magenta, or blue in the image. When you're finished, press OK to confirm your selection. The last white balance option is Preset Manual. With this setting, you can create a custom white balance for your specific lighting conditions. Setting a custom white balance will ensure the best accuracy for the white balance in your images. To set a preset manual white balance, enter the camera's shooting menu and select White Balance. Here, scroll to Preset Manual and press the right arrow on the multi-selector. Select Measure and press OK. If the camera prompts you with an Overwrite Existing Data dialog, select Yes and press OK. Now, fill the viewfinder with the white object and take a picture. If the white balance measurement was successful, data acquired will appear on the information display. Otherwise, the camera will prompt you that it was unable to measure the white balance, and you'll need to take another picture of the white object. The other method for setting a preset manual white balance is the Use Photo method, and it's done by selecting an existing image on the memory card for the camera to copy the white balance data from. To set a preset manual white balance from a photo on the memory card, make sure that the white balance is set to Preset Manual, then navigate to the white balance option in the shooting menu. Scroll to Preset Manual and press the right side of the multi-selector. Highlight Use Photo and press the right side of the multi-selector. Now you can select this image, which will use the image displayed on the LCD, or you can choose Select Image, which will allow you to choose any image on the memory card. When you're finished, simply press OK. Now let's talk about the picture controls. This feature will allow you to customize the look of your image. The picture controls on the D5500 can be accessed by pressing the I button and navigating to the picture control option in the information display. Press OK to view the options. The standard picture control is the default setting, and it offers standard processing and balanced results. This is a good picture control for general situations. The neutral picture control is a good setting to choose if you wish to process the images with your computer. Colors in this picture style are natural and subdued. The vivid picture control is great for images with primary colors that you would like emphasized. The monochrome picture control is useful when you would like to take black and white photographs. Note, images taken in this setting cannot be converted to color later. The portrait picture control is great for portraits. It offers pleasant skin tones and textures. The landscape picture control is good for taking pictures of scenery or cities outdoors. The flat picture control will preserve details over a very wide range of tones, which will give you more control when editing your images on the computer. Each of the picture controls can be modified. To do this, enter the camera's shooting menu and scroll to Set Picture Control. First, we'll select a picture control to modify. We'll choose Vivid. To make modifications, press the right arrow on the multi-selector. Settings can be adjusted using the touch screen or the arrows on the multi-selector. To make the color on the Vivid Picture Control a little more saturated, select Saturation and choose a value toward the plus side of the scale. Press OK to save changes. Picture controls that have been modified are shown with an asterisk in the Picture Control menu. The D5500 also has a feature called Active D-Lighting. When enabled, this feature will preserve detail in the shadow and highlight areas of images with high contrast. This feature is most effective when it's used with matrix metering mode. To use Active D-Lighting, press the I button, scroll to Active D-Lighting and press OK. Here you can choose from Auto, Extra High, High, Normal, Low, and Off. Note that with the higher settings, more digital noise may be introduced in the shadow areas of your image. Another feature on the D5500 is HDR, which will allow you to create stunning HDR images in camera. With the HDR feature, the camera will capture 2 images at high speed. The images will have different exposure settings, and the camera will combine them to create an image with a super realistic range of shadows and highlights. To use HDR, press the I button or tap the I icon and select HDR. You can choose from Auto, Extra High, High, Normal, Low, and Off. Choose the Extra High setting for the most dramatic variation in exposure, and choose Low for the least variation. Your D5500 has a powerful built-in flash that can provide you with extra light in certain shooting scenarios. The effective range of the built-in flash is between 2 and 30 feet, depending on the aperture, shutter speed, and ISO. As a general rule, you want to keep your subject within about 3.5 to 20 feet for the best results. To use the built-in flash, simply press the flash button and the flash will pop up. To select the flash mode, press and hold the flash button while rotating the command dial. The flash mode setting is shown on the information display. Another way to set the flash mode is through the information display. Simply press the I button and select the flash mode setting. The first flash mode is fill flash. This mode is a good general use flash mode. The camera will calculate how much light is needed, and the flash will provide that light. The next flash mode is red eye reduction. This mode is good to use when you're photographing people or pets. In this mode, a tiny pre-flash will fire, which causes the size of the person's pupils to shrink, lessening the effect of red eye in the photo. Because the photo is not taken immediately when the shutter button is pressed, you'll want to avoid using this mode with moving subjects. The third flash mode is slow sync with red eye reduction. In this mode, the flash will combine the red eye reduction function with the slow sync mode. Use this mode for night portraits when you'd like the background to be properly exposed and you'd like to minimize the effects of red eyes. This mode is available only when the shooting mode is set to programmed auto or aperture priority. It's a good idea to use a tripod in this mode to minimize blur due to camera shake. The next mode is slow sync mode. This is a flash mode that's good to use when you're photographing a subject at night and you'd like to have the background and the subject properly exposed. This mode is also only available when the shooting mode is set to programmed auto or aperture priority. And you may also want to use a tripod when you're using this mode as well. The last flash mode is rear curtain sync. In this mode, the flash fires just before the shutter closes, which will create a stream of light behind light sources. The subject will be properly exposed. Using a tripod is recommended to minimize blur due to camera shake. You may find that the flash is producing too much or too little light for your images. Using the flash compensation will allow you to make adjustments to the overall brightness of the image when the flash is used. To adjust the flash compensation, press the I button and select Flash Compensation. Here you can use the multi-selector or touch screen to adjust the flash compensation. You can choose values with a plus sign to make the image brighter and values with a minus sign to make the image darker. The D5500 has a built-in Wi-Fi feature that will allow you to use the camera wirelessly in several ways. You can connect to a smartphone or tablet, operate the camera remotely, send images to a smart device, and share the images to a computer. In order to use the Wi-Fi feature to connect to a smartphone or tablet, you'll first need to make sure that you have the Nikon Wireless Mobile Utility app installed. The app is available for both Android and iOS platforms. Once you have the app installed, you can configure the camera to connect to the smart device wirelessly. First, you'll need to enable the camera's built-in Wi-Fi. To do this, enter the menu system, navigate to the Setup menu, and Wi-Fi. Here, select Network Connection and Enable. Now, select Network Settings and View SSID. The camera will display an SSID. To connect to an iPhone, tap Settings, Wi-Fi, and select the network for the Nikon camera. Now, launch the Wireless Mobile Utility app. There are options for taking photos and viewing photos. Let's briefly discuss how to take photos remotely using the app. To take a photo, simply tap the camera button at the bottom of the app. The other option in the Wireless Mobile Utility app is the View Photos option. Here you can choose to view the pictures on the camera roll for the smart device, or you can view the latest downloads. We hope you've enjoyed learning more about your Nikon D5500. We know this new information will give you enough confidence and know-how to get the most out of your camera. Remember, you can refer back to any section of this guide at any time. Just select the topics that you want to review from the main menu. Watch for more QuickPro guides on newly released cameras. Thanks for watching.